But nevertheless, the NRA is just very outspoken and very hard to understand, which is why I'm trying to make a show about this and trying to break it down and describe the pros and the cons of it. I mean, the pros, they are staying true to the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Which is the Second Amendment to the Constitution.
Oh, the right to bear arms. And, you know, they have a very patriotic spirit, and they are very pro-America, which can all be pros, but this also relates to the show that we did about, you know, extremism and, you know, when you take a good thing and you push it and push it and push it, it can turn into a bad thing, which is kind of the issue with the NRA. They teeter on being a terrorist group. Lots of Democrats and liberals actually have labeled the NRA as a terrorist group because of their outspoken and unorthodox ways of getting across their mission statements and what their beliefs really, and the unfair way that they kind of rig polls. Like I said, with the candidates, a perfectly good candidate who believes in gun control will almost just not have a chance of having a seat, simply because if the NRA speaks out, that whole organization plus their 4.5 million members are not voting for this person. It's just almost impossible to win at that point. So the NRA is just very, very influential in today's society, and especially in our government. And it's really odd to think about.
In a real sense, this organization is powerful enough to determine whether or not there's gun control or gun laws or whatever passed, and it does it primarily because it has influence in American government, in the House and in the Senate. And what you're saying is that by the very, very fact that they can either support or oppose a candidate, that can determine whether or not the candidate is successful in a race for the most part.
Yes, and the NRA, the reason that students and teenagers and adolescents are marching for our lives and walking out of school and protesting gun violence is because we don't have the same advantages as the NRA. We don't have the 4.5 million people behind us. We don't have the $3.2 million budget to help influence the government to stand behind us. We don't have that. But the kids that are affected by gun violence and by these school shootings and these mass shootings want to advocate for rights, but just can't do that.
And so what we'll do, we'll take this final break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some other aspects. And we'll be back with our audience following our short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. The topic is the National Rifle Association and gun laws or gun violence. And we have with us to continue this conversation, Alana McLaughlin. Now, Alana, let's pick up for this final 10 minutes of the show to give you an opportunity to talk about other aspects of the National Rifle Association. And for the most part, to tell us something about how your age group the people that fall within from 13 to 17 years old feel about guns and some of the things that they are doing in terms of dealing with this whole issue of gun violence.
Well, to reiterate kind of what was said in the previous segment for people just tuning in, the National Rifle Association, better known as the NRA, is a non-profit organization that was founded in 1871 that basically heavily advocates for gun rights and heavily wants to keep hold on the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which is the right to bear arms. And basically, they're headquartered in Fairfax, Virginia, and led by CEO Wayne LaPierre. And basically what the NRA does is they make sure that their guns are not getting taken. They make sure that their gun rights will not be taken away. And they take it to such an extreme that while, yes, we should stay true to the amendments and know that we do have the right to bear arms always, but when it comes to assault-style weapons and rifles and not having that good of background checks when trying to purchase a weapon, it comes the debate that, you know, we need to do something about this. These mass shootings in these high schools and elementary schools that have been happening all over the country, even so far back as Columbine in the 90s, people have been really talking about we need to either end the sale of assault-style weapons or just heavier background checks. And then it poses the question, why does a civilian